Well, this Thursday, I have the opportunity to do something that I look forward to every year. And you're probably thinking, sit down to a big old meal at Thanksgiving with turkey and dressing. But what I look forward to every Thanksgiving is running the half marathon. Oh my, is right. That's right. 13.1 miles. And I know this may sound crazy, but I absolutely enjoy it so much. I'll think about it year round. I look forward to it. It is really that big of a day for me. And one of the things you have to do, though, to get ready to run 13 miles is you have to have these long runs along the way. And last Friday, I ran 10 miles. That is a long ways for a boy my size, let me tell you. And I did the 10 miles, and I came in to work, and I came into the office, and one of the ladies that works here, she saw me, and she said, "Jim, are you okay?" And I said, I am. And she said, "What have you been doing?" And I told her I'm running the half marathon, and this morning I ran 10 miles. And she looked at me, and she said this. She asked this question: "Why? Why would you want to put your body through that? Why would you want to go and run 13 miles?" And I began explaining to her how I look forward to this every year, and as how something that I look forward to, and I really enjoy. And I even said I actually love that sensation, that experience of crossing that finish line. And it made me remember that love will motivate us to do things that we would not necessarily do. Love will cause us to do things that are difficult. Love will cause us to do things that are challenging. Love motivates us to do things that we would not necessarily do. You think about your life. Think about something that you love. Maybe it's a person. Maybe it's a hobby that you have. Maybe it's just something that you enjoy doing periodically. You make the time to do it, don't you? You sacrifice the resources to build that relationship. Love motivates us to do what we would not necessarily do on our own. Today, we're talking about loving God. If you've been here at Atlanta First for the last several weeks, you know we've been in a sermon series where we've looked at what the founder of Methodism, John Wesley, said, that if we follow these rules, these 3 rules, we will grow in our relationship with God. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the first rule. You remember what that was? Do no harm. Last week, we talked about the second rule, do good. And today, we're talking about the third rule, stay in love with God. Wesley said, if you do those three things, do no harm, do good, stay in love with God, he said you would grow in your faith and you would become more like Christ. Now, that assumption, though, there's a problem with that. This idea of staying in love with God, it implies that you have to be in love with God to start with. You hear me? It implies that you already have a strong, wholehearted relationship with the Almighty and that you love Him with your entire being. Do you remember not preschool, but when you were in school, elementary school, maybe middle school, those notes were passed around that said, "Do you love me?" And it had a yes, had a no, and it had a maybe. Do you remember that? I never received any of those notes. I'm sure many of you did. I'm afraid that many of us, if we're honest, we're not going to say that we don't love God, because we do love God, but we're not going to say we're, yes, wholeheartedly in love. We're checking that maybe. We're checking, God, I love you with this much in my heart, but I don't know about loving you with my entire being. Yes, no, maybe. God is calling us to a life where we're constantly falling in love, staying in love with Him. And there's a difference. There's a difference between falling in love and staying in love. I do quite a bit of premarital counseling. And these couples come in, they're in my office, and they talk about their love for each other and how they've fallen in love. And I remind them that they're going to wake up one day and they will have put 5 years under their belt, or 10 years under their belt, or 15 or 20 or even 30 years of marriage under their belt. And falling in love on the front end doesn't keep you married for 30 years. It's staying in love is what keeps you married. And it takes being intentional with staying in love. That's what we're talking about tonight with this third general rule of the church that Wesley said. Staying in love with God. It's being intentional, and it's making sure that we're putting everything in our lives, wrapping ourselves around that idea of staying in love with God. For when we stay in love with God, it's then that we become more like Christ in our daily journeys, more like Jesus.